Good morning. I'm Jolene with Remax Elite, and this is Lessons Learned in Real Estate, Edition 8, my Instagram series for the next 30 days. So I'm just gonna pin this so y'all know what I'm talking about. Here we go. So good morning. I hope you had a great long weekend. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about the new mortgage rule changes. So how to de-stress a little bit about the new stress test that's coming into effect January 1st. So basically what has happened is the Canadian government is very concerned about homeowners and what would happen if interest rates change. So they're worried about the housing market correcting if interest rates continue to rise or rise significantly. So they want to make sure that everyone can afford their houses if interest rates change. So they're implementing some changes to the way that lenders qualify buyers moving forward. So as of January 1st, all buyers, regardless of their down payment amount, will be required to be qualified at the posted Canada rate. So regardless of what rate you negotiate with your bank, say you negotiate 3% with your bank, the bank is required to qualify you at the posted Bank of Canada rate, which for easy math, let's just say that's 5%. So even though you are paying an interest rate of 3%, you have to qualify at an interest rate of, say, 5%. So it's higher, and it's not only the posted Canada rate, it's the greater of. So if interest rates go up a little bit more, it's going to be the 2% higher than your bank negotiated rate or the Bank of Canada rate, whichever is higher. So basically, your purchasing power is going to come down. So if you take, for example, a buyer today who has a job and is making $100,000 a year and has saved a 20% down payment and wants to buy a house today with today's interest rates and today's rules, they would qualify for a house worth $640,000. As of January 1st, that same buyer would qualify for a mortgage of $510,000. So that's a significant decrease in the amount of house they qualify for. So not only in terms of price, but the difference between a $500,000 house and a $650,000 house is quite different. So that's wants versus needs are much lower. So you're decreasing your not only purchasing power, but your quality of home. So one thing that is important to note is that a lot of lenders have already been implementing this stress test, so it may not affect as many buyers as we think, but a lot of banks have already been using the posted rate to qualify people because nobody wants a home buyer to be overextended. So nobody wants you to be house poor. Your realtor doesn't want you to spend more than you can afford. The bank doesn't want you to spend more than you can afford. And now the government is very worried that we are spending more than we can afford. So they want to make sure that everything is sustainable and affordable, not only today, the day that you buy the house and move in, but also 1 to 3 to 5 years from now when your mortgage is up for refinance or interest rates rise if you're on a variable rate. So they just want to make sure that the housing market is sustainable long term. So they've applied these rules straight across the board, so straight across Canada. Even though we in Alberta don't need a housing market cooling, areas like Toronto and Vancouver kind of do. So unfortunately, they can't discriminate and only apply changes to those areas. They have to be made right across the board, which is unfortunate, but long term, that's the intent is to make everything sustainable long term, not to implode the market. So they're not trying to do anything bad. They just want to make sure that everyone can afford what they have. So basically what these changes mean, so moving forward, what we may see more buyers doing is going to a shorter term mortgage. So a typical mortgage term is 5 years. So you renew your mortgage every 5 years. and we may see buyers going to a shorter term mortgage. So usually interest rates are a little bit lower if you do a 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 year term. So we may see buyers doing a shorter term mortgage in order to be more affordable and qualify, and then renewing at a potentially higher interest rate. So it's a little bit risky that way. We also may see more buyers going towards alternative lending or more risky type lending situation, so unregulated or alternative lending institutions, which would be also a higher interest rate but easier to qualify for. We may see a little bit of volatility in some of the areas like Edmonton, where we didn't need that cooling, and it's not intended for us, but we're still going to see the effects of it. And we also might see people extending their mortgage amortization. So a typical amortization is 25 years. That's the length of the mortgage that you're intended to pay it off. We may see people pushing that up to 30 years. There are still some lenders that allow 30-year mortgages. So extending that term for 30 years will make your payments a little bit less and more affordable and make that a little bit easier to qualify. And in Canada, we statistically move every 5 years, so you don't necessarily need to have the 25 years. So moving every 5 years isn't going to be as big of a deal. The big question that I'm getting is this going to mean that prices go down? So the thing with the real estate market is that it's not necessarily a logical market. So buying and selling real estate, and real estate in general, is an emotionally driven market, not necessarily a logically driven market. So there is a combination of both, but emotions will drive the market, and it is impossible to predict how a change will affect buyers and sellers. So we don't know what they're going to do. Is it going to make buyers rush out and buy now before the changes take place? Is it going to make sellers slash their prices? Is it going to make more sellers put it on the market? Are buyers going to want to wait and see what happens because they're nervous? It's impossible to say. So my best advice is don't try to time the market because it's impossible to predict. So buy or sell your home when the timing is right for you, and when you can afford it, and when you find the house you like, you can afford it. Moving forward, you can afford it. Just try to do what's right for you. Don't try to follow what everyone else is doing, or just do what is right for you, and talk to your lender now if you're planning to buy a house in the next 6 months. Talk to them now to find out if these changes will affect you, and if you are better off to buy now before January 1st, or if you can wait. So just find out what is best for you. A lot of people will be priced out of their current market with these changes. So your purchasing power decreasing means that maybe the house that you were hoping to buy, or your house you've been saving for, is no longer attainable. So you'll have to maybe adjust your wants and needs, or buy now, or save more money. So it depends on your personal situation. If it's going to take you out of the market that you want to be in, it's probably better to buy now. So talk to your lender, get pre-qualified now, figure out your mortgage, your budget, your whole financial checklist, and decide if you should buy now before the changes price you out of the market that you personally want to be in and that you can afford to be in. If you have a mortgage pre-approval, it will no longer be valid after January 1st. So as of January 1st, the new changes and the new stress test will come in. So as of January 1st, your pre-approval will have to be re-stress tested and then redone. If you are refinancing your mortgage after January 1st, you will have to qualify under the stress test of the higher rate. You'll still pay the lower rate, but you're qualified at the higher rate. But if you are renewing your mortgage, it won't affect you if you stay with your current bank or your current lender. So if you stay there, you just renew and move forward as normal. But if you want to change banks or change lenders, then you will have to do the whole qualification period again and qualify under the stress test. So that's great news for banks, because they're not going to have to be as competitive with their renewal rates if they basically have you kind of stuck where you can't afford to leave. So that's an unfortunate thing, but that's what's going to happen moving forward. So what are some things that you can do to de-stress about the stress test? Because it shouldn't necessarily be a stressful thing. Like I said, a lot of lenders have already been implementing it. So the number one thing is don't buy a house to your maximum borrowing limit. Nobody wants you to be house poor. That is the worst thing. You want to be able to buy a house with your monthly payments that are affordable while still having a life. You still want to be able to go for nice dinners, do some shopping, go on a holiday, pay for your family, have an emergency fund. Don't maximize your house budget so that's all you can do is pay all your money into the house. So that would be the number one tip. Just be smart about not maxing out your lending limit, and that would be much less stress financially. Number two, buy an income property. So if you maybe want to buy in an area that you're at your max budget to be able to get what you want, consider a basement suite or a garage suite. Garage suites are becoming a lot more popular in Edmonton, which is awesome. So consider having someone else pay 40% of your mortgage. Why not? That's a great option. So I highly recommend looking into an income property. Also, 2 incomes are better than 1. So if you're married, you have a little bit of an advantage where you can pool your 2 incomes and still have your emergency fund. If you're not, maybe you buy with a partner or a friend and you buy a 2-suite, the same thing, like an up-down suite or a 2-suite, something side by side, something where you can share but still have your own space, and combine your finances that way. Or talk to your parents. So obviously everyone wants to be independent, and the banks want you to be able to do it on your own. They don't want you to need to go to someone else for help. But for example, if you maybe have just started a great job and you know that it's going to be a stable job and that your income and your level will be going up over the next 5 years. So this is your starting salary, but you know that your salary is going to go up every year, and you know that the house you're buying, you can lock in a 5-year fixed rate where you know your expenses are going to stay the same, your mortgage payments will be the same. You can afford them today, and moving forward, your income is going to increase, so it's going to become more affordable. It's never cheaper than today to buy the house. So by having some extra help from your parents to combine that income that you can afford to buy something a little bit more expensive that you can still afford, that's a great alternative if you can still afford it. So if you can't afford it today and you need someone to help you to be able to afford it today, banks aren't going to like that. But if you can afford it today and you know that moving forward you're still going to be able to be in a stronger position, then by all means you should get some help from someone else. And even with your down payment, so it's a great option to have your parents help you with that. My parents helped me with my first house, and they put the 20% down payment. They paid for the renovations because they're awesome, and my dad renovated my house. And then when we sold it, they got their down payment, all of the renovation costs back, and then I had my down payment plus a nice healthy amount of cash for my next property. So that's a great option, is have someone help you get into that house. And maybe you're buying something a little bit less expensive. So I know that I find that today nobody wants to start in that starter home. Nobody likes the term starter home. They want the level that they've grown accustomed to, maybe with their family, or because their parents have a nice house, they also want to have a nice house. So nobody wants to start low and build themselves up, but maybe try to start a little bit lower. This might take you out of a single family home, maybe into a townhouse or a duplex, and you can live there for 2 to 5 years and then upgrade. Like I said, people in Canada tend to move every 5 years. So this is not your first home, or this purchase may not be the home that you're going to stay in forever. Don't look at it that way. Try to look at it for the next 2 to 5 years. Can you afford your monthly payments? Moving forward, that will be your best option. So if you have questions about qualifying or your interest rates, talk to your lender today, because I highly recommend purchasing before January 1st if you are going to be on that borderline of not being able to buy the house that you really, really want, talk to your lender. I work with some awesome lenders who I super trust, so they would be more than happy to meet with you, and we are ready to set up those meetings right away. If you have any questions, send me a message. Thank you so much for watching. Hi, everyone. And don't be stressed about the stress test. It's not intended to stress you out. It's intended to make the housing market more stable, more affordable, long-term, which is what everyone wants. So if you have any questions, send me a message. I'll see you tomorrow at 10. Thanks so much. Bye.